She was sitting on his lap, her fingers tracing the buttons of his shirt, both pretending nothing was happening. When two people who should have known better find themselves alone, the air between them becomes unbearable. Every glance lingers too long. Every word feels like it hides something else. They're trying to stay composed, but the silence says everything. In a quiet room filled with tension, one small touch begins to rewrite what they thought they could control. This story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The rain had trapped them inside longer than either expected. The small studio smelled faintly of coffee and dusted paper. Her kind of place, half lived in, half guarded. He stood near the window, pretending to be absorbed by the weather. She sat on the arm of the couch, pretending not to notice how close he'd come. "Noah," she said softly, like testing the sound of his name again after years. He turned. "You still keep the same chair," he said, nodding at the one by the lamp. "You used to grade papers there." Elena smiled, not meeting his eyes. Some habits don't let go easily. Neither did silence. It settled between them, thick and breathing. The light from the window caught the gold in her hair, and he found himself watching her hand move, slow, nervous, brushing invisible lint from her sleeve. She noticed. "You always stare like that when you're thinking," she said. He laughed quietly. "Maybe I'm not thinking." A pause. The rain tapped harder. She shifted on the couch, crossing one leg over the other, a gesture casual only on the surface. "You came all this way just to talk about chairs?" He opened his mouth to answer, then stopped. The space between words became louder than speech. He could hear her breath. She could hear his hesitation. He stepped closer. Not enough to touch, just enough to feel the warmth that filled the distance. "Elena," he said finally, "I didn't come for the chairs." Her eyes flicked up, calm but unguarded. For a moment, the world seemed to shrink to the sound of rain and their uneven breathing. Something in her expression softened. Not surrender, not yet, but a recognition of the danger she'd let in. She stood, smoothing her skirt as if to break the spell. "You should probably go before the rain stops," she said, voice low. But neither moved. The clock ticked once, then again, and still they stood there, close enough to know that whatever they were pretending hadn't changed. Just had. The rain didn't stop. It only softened, like the world outside knew how to whisper what neither of them could say. Elena stood by the couch, arms folded, pretending to check the window again. Her pulse betrayed her calm. He could see it in the way her fingers pressed against her sleeve, steadying herself. Noah watched her from where he stood, uncertain whether to leave or stay. The quiet between them wasn't empty. It was full of everything they hadn't said. "You always do this," she said finally. Her voice was softer than before, almost weary. "Do what?" "Look at me like you're searching for something you've already found." He smiled faintly. "Maybe I just want to be sure it's still there." That made her look at him. Really look. Her eyes weren't cold, just guarded, as if every truth in her life had been folded neatly and kept out of reach. He took a step closer. She didn't move back. "You shouldn't," she murmured. "Probably," he said, "but I've been trying not to for years." A small laugh escaped her, the kind that hides more ache than humor. She turned her head away, brushing her hair behind her ear to give her hands something to do. The motion was graceful, deliberate, and trembling. He reached out, not to touch her, just to rest his hand near hers. The air between them seemed to hum. Every breath felt borrowed. She exhaled slowly. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." "I think it was always going to be hard," he said. Her lips parted, but no words came. The silence stretched, and for a heartbeat, it felt like the room itself leaned closer to listen. The clock ticked again, the same slow rhythm as before, but now it felt different. Louder, closer. Finally, she turned toward him, her face unreadable. "You should go," she repeated, though it sounded less like a command and more like a confession. He hesitated, eyes locked on hers. "If I go now," he said quietly, "I won't come back." That made her blink, just once. and in that small flicker of hesitation, something unnamed passed between them. Outside, the rain began again, and inside, neither of them moved. The lights had dimmed with the weather, turning the apartment into a blur of warm lamplight and shadows. The rain's rhythm was softer now, broken only by the occasional sigh of wind against the glass. Elena poured another cup of coffee she didn't need. Her hands were steady, but her thoughts were not. She could feel Noah's eyes on her. That same quiet focus that always unsettled her more than words ever could. "You're really not leaving, are you?" she asked without turning. Noah hesitated. "You didn't really ask me to." She almost smiled. "I said it twice, and meant it neither time." His voice had changed lower, certain. It filled the space like something tangible. When she turned, he was closer again. Not enough to touch, but enough that the air between them seemed to tremble. He reached for the mug she held, his fingers brushing hers. The contact lasted a second too long. She pulled back, but the heat lingered. Not on her skin, but somewhere deeper. "Noah." Her tone was both warning and plea. He shook his head gently. "I know. I shouldn't." "Then don't." "I've tried," he said, and the way he said it made her forget what she was defending. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy, magnetic. Her heart beat against it, each thud a small betrayal. She moved to the couch, needing distance, but he followed, not deliberately, just drawn. When she sat, he remained standing beside her, close enough that she could smell the faint trace of rain on his clothes. He looked down at her for a long moment. "You're doing that thing again," he murmured. "What thing?" "Pretending you don't feel it too." Her breath caught. The truth hung there, unsaid yet undeniable. She looked up, met his eyes, and for the first time didn't look away. Whatever boundary had existed between them, professional, moral, or imagined, began to blur, quietly, invisibly. He took a step closer. She didn't move. Outside, thunder rolled faintly over the ocean. Inside, their silence answered it. The space between them disappeared, not through touch, not yet, but through everything neither of them could undo. The storm moved farther out to sea, leaving the room steeped in a heavy stillness. The clock's second hand was the only sound, marking time that neither wanted to acknowledge. Elena stayed seated, hands folded in her lap, as if holding herself together. Noah stood across from her, his expression caught somewhere between apology and need. "You should go," she said again, softer this time, "before this becomes something we can't explain." He shook his head. "It already is." She looked away. The lamp cast thin shadows across her face, and he could see the exhaustion there, the fight to remain sensible. "You think this is simple?" she asked. "No," he answered. "That's why I'm still here." The honesty of it made her close her eyes. A breath left her chest, long and shaky. When she opened them again, he was closer, standing in the narrow strip of light that fell across the floor. He didn't touch her. He didn't need to. Every inch of space carried the hum of what could happen if either of them stopped pretending. "You don't know what you want," she whispered. "I do," he said quietly. "I just don't know if I'm allowed to." Something inside her gave way, not a decision, just the smallest surrender. She rose to her feet, and for a moment they stood in perfect stillness, faces inches apart. Outside, a car passed on the wet street, headlights flashing through the window like a camera's burst. For an instant, the world felt suspended in that light. Her hand lifted halfway before falling back. "You're too young to ruin yourself over something like this," she said. He smiled faintly. "Maybe I already did." The air between them quivered, thick with everything neither could speak. When she finally turned toward the window, he didn't stop her. He just stood behind her, close enough that their reflections blurred together in the glass. Two outlines, breathing the same uncertain air. She closed her eyes, whispering, "We can't go further than this." But her voice trembled, and the sentence didn't sound like an ending. The rain started again, soft and slow, as though the night itself refused to let them decide. The thunder had drifted away, leaving a fragile silence in its place. Elena stood by the window, her reflection fading in and out with each pulse of lightning from far off. Behind her, Noah lingered, his hands deep in his pockets, his thoughts louder than any storm. Neither spoke. Words felt too blunt for the weight of what hung between them. Then the sound came, a sharp knock at the door. Both froze. Elena turned, eyes wide, her breath catching as if the air had betrayed her. Noah's expression changed. Not fear exactly, but a sudden awareness of the world outside the moment they'd built. She hesitated, then crossed the room. "Don't move," she whispered, her voice tight, as though even the sound of it could give something away. The knock came again, softer this time, followed by a familiar voice. "Elena? It's Grace. You left your umbrella at the cafe." Her neighbor, of all people. Elena swallowed, glancing at Noah. His jaw tightened, his posture stiff. It was the first time she'd seen him look unsure. She opened the door only halfway. "Grace, hi. I thank you. You didn't have to." Grace smiled, peering past her shoulder. "Oh, I didn't realize you had company." Elena's heart thudded. "Just a student," she said too quickly. "He stopped by with some papers." Grace nodded, unbothered. "You and your papers. Always working. Well, I'll let you get back to it." When the door closed again, the silence that followed was no longer soft. It was sharp, almost cutting. Noah spoke first. "A student," he repeated quietly. Elena turned back to him. "What was I supposed to say?" He didn't answer. His eyes searched hers for something she couldn't name. Honesty, maybe, or belonging. "I wasn't ashamed," she said finally. "I was protecting us." "From what?" Her voice dropped. "From the world that doesn't understand what this is." He stepped closer again, not touching, but near enough that she could feel his breath. "And do you understand what this is?" Her reply didn't come right away. Instead, she looked down, at her hands still trembling from the interruption. "No," she whispered. "That's what terrifies me." The rain began again, soft as before, but something had changed. The interruption hadn't broken the moment. It had deepened it. Noah reached for her hand, this time without hesitation. She didn't pull away. For a long time they stood there, not speaking, not moving, just two people caught between what they wanted and what they were still afraid to name. Outside, the thunder rolled again, faint but returning. And inside, the storm they'd tried to avoid finally found its way back. The room felt smaller now, as if the storm outside had condensed all the air between them into something tangible. The rain drummed softly, a quiet rhythm against the glass, almost like a heartbeat, their heartbeat. Elena's hands were clasped together, pressed to her chest as if holding herself upright. Noah stood close, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. Every hesitation, every pause, every unspoken word had led here. "I can't. I don't know if I should," she whispered, voice breaking under the weight of her own longing. "You don't have to decide right now," he said, steady but low. "Just be here, with me, for this moment." Her eyes flicked up, meeting his. For the first time there was no pretense, no armor. Only recognition that they had been navigating a storm of their own making, and neither had wanted to turn away. "I didn't think I'd feel like this again," she admitted, voice trembling. "Not after everything." He didn't respond immediately. He simply reached out, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was small, deliberate, intimate. It carried all the words they couldn't say aloud. She shivered at the contact, and for a heartbeat, the world narrowed to the space between them. Every breath, every glance, every subtle movement spoke of desire, longing, and the fear of losing what they had finally found in each other. "I've been waiting for this," he said, almost a whisper. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came. She couldn't, not yet. The storm outside softened, leaving a quiet drizzle, and in that stillness, everything between them seemed magnified. Time had stopped. The clock ticked somewhere far away, but it no longer mattered. She exhaled, slowly, finally allowing herself to lean just a fraction closer. He mirrored her movement, neither rushing nor holding back. They were close enough to feel the same pulse, to share the same fragile space without needing to say a thing. It was raw. It was bold. It was everything they'd been avoiding, yet exactly what they had needed. And then, a sudden flicker of lightning cast the room in stark light, and for a split second, they saw each other fully, completely. Neither could look away, and for the first time, the world outside didn't exist. Only this moment, only the storm within them, only the impossible closeness they had finally allowed themselves to feel. The rain had stopped completely. The room smelled faintly of damp wood and coffee, a quiet reminder that the storm outside had passed. But the storm inside lingered. Elena sat back on the couch, her hands resting lightly in her lap. She could still feel the warmth of his presence, the echo of his steady breath, the way the air between them had vibrated with all the things left unsaid. Noah remained standing a few steps away, hesitant, as if the space itself were delicate glass. His eyes never left hers. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other, the silence heavier than any words. "I should go," he said softly, almost reluctantly. "Maybe," she replied, her voice steady but quiet. "Or maybe not yet." He took a step closer, and she didn't pull away. The gesture was small, but it carried everything: the longing, the fear, the acknowledgement that nothing could ever be the same. She leaned back slightly, resting her head against the couch cushion, and he settled beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. No words were needed. Every glance, every micro-movement, said everything they had been holding in. "You know this isn't simple," she murmured finally. "I know," he said, "and I don't want simple." Her lips curved into a faint, tired smile. "Neither do I." They stayed like that for a long while, not speaking, not moving, just existing in the quiet aftermath of their own storm. The world outside had returned to normal, but the air between them was charged with all the possibilities they now shared. Finally, she tilted her head slightly, resting it lightly on his shoulder. He responded instinctively, adjusting to meet her halfway. It was intimate without being overwhelming, a gesture of trust, of acceptance, of acknowledgement that they had crossed a line together and had survived it emotionally. The clock ticked, the rain's memory fading into the night, and yet they remained, two people who had discovered a connection neither expected but both needed. And somewhere in the soft glow of the room, they allowed themselves to simply exist, close, aware, and fully alive in a way that promised the story wasn't over. A gentle smile passed between them, not a conclusion, not a beginning, just a pause, a heartbeat before whatever came next.